The Iowa Sanctuary Movement shared the following on their website. When refugees from the civil wars in Central America began to flee in the 1980s and they came to the United States, the U.S. government did not recognize them as political refugees. Many were deported and they received threats by death squads upon their return home. From this dire injustice, the Sanctuary Movement was born. It peaked with over 500 congregations across our country providing sanctuary. In 2007, an initiative known as the New Sanctuary Movement began throughout our country as workplace and neighborhood immigration enforcement raids escalated. More congregations opened their doors to provide sanctuary to immigrant neighbors who were facing deportation. In 2008, St. Bridget Catholic Church in Postville, Iowa, became a place of refuge for families whose loved ones were arrested during an immigration enforcement raid at the local packing plant. Sanctuary is one of the most ancient traditions we have as a people of faith. The ancient Hebrew people were instructed to declare certain cities as places of refuge for persons falsely accused of a crime, allowing those accused to escape swift and hard retribution until the matter could be resolved. In the United States, the first practical provision of anything like sanctuary occurred in the years before the Civil War, the Underground Railroad. It came into being to help slaves flee the South and find safety in many congregations throughout the North. Our Iowa Sanctuary logo borrows from this tradition. Oral folklore indicates that they have a log cabin style quilt block. They said that this log cabin style quilt block, if it was found hanging on a clothesline, it signaled a stop on the Underground Railroad. Drawing on this tradition, communities of faith are once again seeing the need to provide sanctuary for immigrants. In the 1980s, congregations were compelled by the call to welcome the stranger and opened their doors to newly arriving refugees. Now congregations are moved by the call to love our neighbors as ourselves, as those who are in need of sanctuary are most often long-term members of our communities, our neighbors. The Iowa Sanctuary Movement is asking faith communities to declare themselves as a sanctuary, either as a hosting congregation or a support congregation to another church that has opted to house people. They are seeking both the hosts and the supports. They are also working to win administrative relief to provide temporary deferred action. They are working to put an end to deportation of non-priority neighbors and to update our immigration system to include a path to citizenship. Some of the members of our church have heard this call. They have formed a Sanctuary Discernment Team to research the ramifications of our congregation becoming a hosting or a supporting congregation and providing sanctuary. The team seeks to engage our congregation in this discernment with them. They have and will continue to host educational sessions. There's some next Sunday and also this Wednesday evening if you want to learn more about what this means. And we're going to hear from several of them now as they share their views about this possibility for our congregation.
Hello, my name is Sue Huber, and I am part of the Sanctuary Discernment Team. This month, our theme is risk. Several weeks ago, the high school students had a great service, and as part of that service, they asked us to answer the question, a risk I'm glad I took. I answered that question by stating that I took a risk when I left my comfortable home and work to move to a new country where I didn't know anyone or the language. I was becoming a Peace Corps volunteer in Costa Rica. Sure, there was some risk, but it was something I chose. I wanted to go. I was invited to go, and I was welcome when I arrived. It was really more of an adventure than a risk. The families that are coming here from Central America are truly taking a risk. Besides not knowing the language or how they are going to make it, they are not welcomed, and they live in fear, in the shadows, but they still come here because they don't have a choice. I cannot begin to imagine what I could do if I were in their shoes. They have risked everything to support their families. These undocumented individuals are now scared. ICE is becoming more aggressive, and families are starting to make plans about what to do if ICE arrives. I know there are people in Des Moines who want to seek sanctuary in the city in Des Moines. For my day job, I'm a pediatric occupational therapist for the Des Moines Public Schools. I visit families from birth to 3 who have children with developmental delays from the ages of birth to 3. As I speak Spanish, I provide support to many Hispanic families. Several Fridays ago, I saw 2 different Hispanic families, and by the end of my day, my heart was heavy listening to the fears these families are now living. Let me tell you about these families. Sandra and Jose are from Mexico, and they lived here 4 years. They are undocumented. They have 2 children, a 2-year-old girl named Alejandra and a 1-year-old boy named Antonio. Both children were born prematurely at 27 weeks. Alejandra has some developmental delays and has poor health due to chronic lung disease. If she gets sick, she is usually hospitalized. Antonio, her younger brother, is doing well. Jose, the dad, has a brother who is also undocumented. I don't know the whole story, but ICE was looking for the brother, so they asked Jose where he was at. Jose didn't know where his brother was at, but ICE still detained Jose. This was a year ago. Sandra, at that time, asked me to write a letter to give to the judge to explain about the services that her children were needing. They also received letters from the children's pediatrician that the children needed to stay in the United States. They were able to make a case to the judge about why Jose shouldn't be deported, and now Jose has received an extension on his case, but he needs to go back to the judge in 2018. 2018 seems like a long ways away, but time will go fast. The family doesn't know what they will do. If Jose goes to the judge, he will probably be deported. Sandra says that will be okay. They could start over in Mexico except for their children. The children are citizens of the United States. If they go back to Mexico, Alejandra and Antonio cannot receive medical care there because they are not citizens of Mexico. So they do not know what they will do. Jose is an example of someone who might seek some sanctuary. The second family is a mother and a daughter, Maria and Olivia. Olivia was also born severely premature and had some brain bleeds, and she is now significantly and multiply handicapped with the diagnosis of cerebral palsy, deafness, and she uses a G-tube for her nutrition. Olivia is everything to Maria, and Maria is a wonderful mother. Maria is here on a work visa. She is in the process of renewing that visa. She is worried about what will happen if the visa is not renewed. So she is looking for someone to be Olivia's legal guardian in case Maria has to be deported. Maria knows that if Olivia cannot go to Mexico, she would not be able to survive there. Maria is someone who could ask for sanctuary to keep her family together if her work visa is denied. There is a real need for sanctuary in the city of Des Moines. I have seen it.
I'm Karen Lauer. I'm also a member of the discernment team. February 16th was the Day Without Immigrants, a peaceful action designed to show the importance of immigrants to the U.S. economy and against anti-immigration policies espoused by the current administration and introduced in the state legislature. I went to the march intending to walk with members of the Des Moines chapter of Showing Up for Racial Justice, but the crowd was so large I couldn't find the group, so I stepped off the sidewalk to wait for them. About 500 people were expected to attend the march, but the final count was more than 2,000. It took nearly an hour for the throng to pass as people, 3 and 4 across, filled the sidewalk from La Placita on East Grand and 15th to the Capitol. Organizers directed the crowd in Spanish, urging everyone not to block traffic and emphasizing the peaceful nature of the protest. There I stood, a tall, obviously fair-skinned woman of privilege, as hundreds of Latinos, young, old, babies, grandmothers, teenagers passed by. A seemingly never-ending stream of people with signs in English and Spanish, peacefully protesting unjust immigration laws. It felt good to be finally doing something more than just making phone calls and sending emails to legislators. But then something truly humbling happened. As I stood there holding my sign, "Immigrants Make America Great," with a little heart shape dotting the I in America, people started thanking me. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for being here. I had my picture taken countless times, holding my sign, standing next to people, some with tears in their eyes, who were grateful that I merely showed up. All it took for me to attend was a deep breath or two to calm my anxiety and some difficulty finding parking. For many, if not most, of the Latinos there that day, attending the rally meant a day without pay or even risking their jobs. That same day, half the students in my daughter's 4th grade class in Marshalltown were absent for the protest. The children who came to class were frightened, thinking their friends had been taken. My daughter reassured them, explaining the protest was like the peaceful protests of Martin Luther King Jr. during the Civil Rights Movement. Last week, parents kept their children home in fear due to rumors that ICE, the government immigration police, were in town. I volunteered with last month's outreach partner, Justice for Our Neighbors, which offers legal assistance to those in need. Lately, nearly everyone is seeking help with legal papers and immigration issues. I helped with intake forms that night and was struck again by the desperation and the graciousness of those seeking help. A woman about my age was seeking legal status, hoping to become eligible for health insurance to combat her cancer diagnosis. Her adult children all have DACA status. She's been in the U.S. for more than 20 years and is married to a U.S. citizen. Next was a young woman, maybe 20 years old, who came in with her aunt. She arrived from El Salvador, a dangerous country overtaken by gang violence, in November. She hopes to be granted asylum so she may stay in the U.S. with her 6-week-old baby. During this time, I attended a meeting to learn about the Iowa Sanctuary movement. The room at First Christian Church was full to capacity with members from numerous faith communities in the Des Moines area. We heard about legal aspects of Sanctuary and of the 28 faith communities in the Twin Cities area that declared support for Sanctuary shortly after the election last fall. I was reminded of UUA President Peter Morales' call to UU congregations to support Sanctuary, stating in part, "As people of faith and people of conscience, we pledge to resist the newly elected administration's policy proposals to target and deport millions of undocumented immigrants and discriminate against marginalized communities. We will open up our congregations and communities as sanctuary spaces for those targeted by hate and work alongside our friends, families, and neighbors to ensure the dignity and human rights of all people." Yet, I was struck by the reluctance I felt in the room. Most questions were about legal consequences to sanctuary churches and congregations. Of course, it is essential to understand any potential legal risks, which, by the way, are likely to be nil, as more than 40 years of sanctuary has not resulted in a single legal action aimed at churches. Surely, with so many churches represented, we could propose that First Unitarian consider one of the lesser commitments. But so far, no faith-based organization in our state's capital city has come forward to offer sanctuary, nor even to make a statement of support. I am here to ask that we, the congregation of First Unitarian Church of Des Moines, a congregation that has led the way in supporting LGBTQ rights, women's rights, and civil rights, take a risk. ICE is actively arresting people in Des Moines and throughout the state. So far, at least 25 people from Des Moines have been taken. ICE is stopping people on their way to work. Let me emphasize this, on their way to work. Not criminals, not dangerous people, regular people who just want the same things we all do: a safe place to live, a good job, and education for themselves and their families. Our current immigration laws and the targeting of Latinos in our community are tearing families apart, often leaving a mother and her children stranded with no means of support. Several organizations in Des Moines are now collecting supplies for at least 3 families whose breadwinners have been arrested. We don't have the luxury of taking our time. We don't have the luxury of sitting in our comfortable church, going to our good jobs, and living our relatively easy lives when our neighbors are afraid to leave their homes to take their children to school. The Sanctuary movement is calling on us to take a stand, to live our principles. Yes, it might be a risk, and we comfortable people don't like to take risks. but we must compare our potential risks to those of an undocumented immigrant. If we provide sanctuary for an individual, we will be inconvenienced. It won't be easy to provide all that a family needs, not just for a week as with Family Promise, but potentially for months or longer. But contrast our inconvenience with the risks an undocumented immigrant takes each and every day, knowing that he or she could be arrested at any time, leaving their families, their children, without income and care. Inconvenience versus losing my children. I cannot imagine standing by while others in my community face this level of fear and not being moved to act. If we are to be more than a comfortable place to have coffee on Sunday mornings, we must be willing to take action. Don't our principles call us to risk ourselves, even just a little bit, as we seek justice for others? We are not leaping into the idea of serving as a sanctuary church without due consideration. We are consulting with the First Unitarian Society of Denver, a church that currently provides sanctuary for Jeanette Vizquerra, a mother of 3 U.S. citizens who's fighting to remain in the United States where she has lived, worked, and paid taxes for 20 years. Other faith communities in Des Moines are considering what role to play in the Iowa sanctuary movement, with several likely to join in a supporting role, offering financial and volunteer assistance to churches that become sanctuaries. We also will use the UUA Faithify website that operates like a GoFundMe page to help raise the money needed for renovations and other expected costs. The Denver UU Church raised a substantial sum through this platform. As for legal considerations, there are immigration lawyers who've already offered their services should we need them. A friend and I read to children at a bilingual preschool here in Des Moines. Just last week, 2 little girls, 5-year-olds, spontaneously shared, "If Trump comes, you have to go hide in the woods. If you don't have papers, they'll come and take you away, and you'll never come back." Our unjust immigration laws are traumatizing a generation of children, many, if not most of whom are American citizens, which might matter to some. It concerns me that our faith communities, and I include us in with the other congregations who are considering offering sanctuary, might be too afraid to take a risk. Isn't that what we're called to do? For us in service to our principles and others in accordance with their religious beliefs? It seems to me we are entering an extraordinary and dangerous time for so many different groups of people. What does it say about us if we aren't willing to inconvenience ourselves or take a little risk? I ask you to consider the role we want First Unitarian Church of Des Moines to play in fighting for just immigration laws. We have the chance to become part of a broad-based coalition using civil disobedience in the fight for justice. I hope we will decide to take a stand in this fight, to choose to be leaders in our community and our state, as we have so many times in our 140 years as a congregation. As South African civil rights activist and Anglican Bishop Desmond Tutu said, "If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor."
We have heard the call, and we are working to respond as a congregation. So far, we have learned we have many resources to bring to this decision.
We have a model. We are learning from the First Unitarian Society of Denver, which is housing Jeanette Vizquerra right now. They work with a coalition of organizations and congregations in the Denver metro area to support Jeanette, an organization that Jeanette helped found. The church worked with UUA and the coalition to raise the funding sources needed to make the necessary renovations, to feed and house the family, etc. There are people we can learn from.
We have relevant experience. 4 times a year, our church hosts families experiencing homelessness in our church through a Family Promise. I help organize these events. Several years ago, we wondered if we could do this. We had 1 or 2 different informational meetings, but nothing became of it because we didn't think it was possible. This last year, a team of us made it a reality, and it's working. We're getting volunteers we need, and it flows. There hasn't been any complications except for a few RE classes on Wednesdays, but due to the flexibility of our RE director, it all works out. We can house a person or family, but it will take flexibility and support of the whole church.
We are building relationships with other churches to do this. Other congregations in Des Moines are considering becoming a sanctuary as well, and if not a hosting one, then a support congregation. We have the chance to be leaders in a broad-based coalition. We would not be going this alone.
We have the legal support we might need. There are immigration lawyers who have already offered counsel about the legal implications of providing sanctuary. They have also offered their services should we need them. They are ready to stand with us.
We have the call from our faith. The president of the Unitarian Universalist Association and the president of the UU Service Committee wrote, "This is not about partisan politics. It is a principled response to the potential targeting of people, not for what they have done, but for who they are. As a people of conscience, we declare our commitment to translate our values into action as we stand on the side of love with the most vulnerable among us."
We have the potential to do this. We know families are in need.
We have the courage to do this. The team of people working on this are not afraid to take this calculated risk.
And we have lots of questions and some answers. We need more conversation with all of you.
So to begin this conversation, I invite you, or given a Post-it note when you came in. I'm going to give you a little time to think about the questions that we might be holding as we think about whether or not to do this as a congregation. But I want to offer these words to you as we think about whether or not to open our door. Think about the meaning of threshold as shared by the poet John O'Donohue. He says that the word threshold comes from threshing, which is to separate the grain from the husk. So the threshold, he says, in a way, is a place where you move into more critical and challenging, more worthy fullness. He says there are huge thresholds in every life. You know that, for instance, if you're in the middle of your life in a very busy evening and you've got 50 things to do, and in the midst of it you get a phone call that somebody you love is suddenly dying. It takes 10 seconds to communicate that information. But when you put the phone down, you're already standing in a different world. Suddenly everything that seemed so important before is all gone now, and you're only thinking of this. So the given world that we think there is and the solid ground we are on is so tentative. And a threshold is a line which separates these two territories of spirit. And very often, how we cross is the key thing. How will we cross this threshold, this call? I invite you to write down the questions that you hold. Yes, we have lots of logistical questions. Maybe you could save some of those. I'm thinking larger picture questions. But the questions that you hold as we think about the possibility of opening our door to provide sanctuary. Think about the questions that our faith asks us to consider. What are the questions you would want our community to consider to guide us as we contemplate this possibility together? So I invite you to write them down. We'll have a moment here with some music. And if you are so moved, to come and place them inside the door, on the threshold, on the outside, wherever you feel is appropriate for your message, that our discernment team can look at them and bring them into the conversations this next week.